My name is Nico Estevez. On the evening of March 14th, 2025, I died. It happened suddenly. No warning, no time to prepare. One moment, I was lying on my couch after dinner, scrolling through news stories about wild weather and rumors of war. The next, everything went dark. I remember the strangest sensation in my chest, like time folding inward. My breathing slowed. The ceiling above me faded. Then nothing, but I was still aware. I didn't feel pain. I didn't even feel fear, not at first. I floated upward gently, like being carried. The room I had been in was gone. I was above it, and then I was above my neighborhood, then the city. My body was far behind me, a distant shell. There was a sound, faint but rising, a deep thrumming, like a hum of 1,000 voices murmuring prayers all at once. And then, just ahead, a doorway formed in the sky. I don't know how else to describe it. An opening that pulsed with light, golden and endless. But as I passed through it, the light dimmed like a veil had fallen. The atmosphere turned solemn. The colors weren't harsh, but they were serious, like something sacred was about to happen. And then I saw him, Jesus, not like the paintings or movies, not like I imagined. He wasn't soft-spoken or vague. He was radiant and piercing, a storm of peace and truth all at once. His robe seemed to move like waves in the wind, and his eyes, God, his eyes, looked through me like glass. He didn't say my name. He said something else. You must tell them. My soul trembled. Tell who? I asked, confused, still trying to grasp where I was. Tell them about the 3 days of darkness. Those words struck me like lightning. He wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. But the weight behind what he said was so intense it made me fall to my knees, even though I wasn't a physical body anymore. His voice carried the burden of heaven's urgency. It wasn't suggestion. It was a commission. You're sending me back? I whispered, not understanding. Yes, he replied, but first you must see. He reached his hand toward me, not roughly, but deliberately, and suddenly I was surrounded by a whirlwind of visions. It was like my spirit was taken into time itself. I saw homes with curtains pulled tight, people kneeling with candles lit. I heard children crying in the dark. I saw cities blanketed in blackness. No stars, no moon, no light from street lamps or phones. People stumbled in confusion, some praying, some screaming, some completely paralyzed by fear. And then he showed me the church, not a building, but the body. Some believers were awake, preparing. Others were yawning, spiritually lazy. Still others were mocking the idea, shaking their heads, saying, "This isn't real. God doesn't work like that." Jesus looked at me again and said, slowly, "They think they have more time. They don't." I was shown a calendar, not a date. He didn't highlight a specific day, but the pages turned faster than I could keep track. Spring turned to summer, then winter, then stillness, a pause, and a chill swept through the vision like a storm about to hit. Then he said something that made my entire being shudder. When the light is taken, the division will be complete. I didn't understand. I wanted to ask questions. I wanted to cry out, "What do I tell them? What should they do?" But he just raised his hand, and everything went silent. We were no longer in the vision. We were alone, just me and him. I stood. He looked at me with something in his expression I didn't expect. Grief. "So many will perish," he said quietly. "Not because I didn't call, but because they refused to hear." I wanted to weep. I felt it deep in my bones, the ache of God's heart over his people. It wasn't about punishment. It was about preparation. A loving father warning his children before something no one was ready for. Then I heard one final sentence. Warn them, not just with words, but with urgency. Time is almost finished. And just like that, I was falling backward fast, spinning through clouds and time and color and sound, back into my body, back into pain, back into the weight of flesh and lungs and heartbeat. I gasped like a man drowning. When I opened my eyes, paramedics were leaning over me, their faces a mix of shock and relief. They said I had no pulse for nearly 7 minutes. They had just called my time of death when I gasped. But I didn't care about that. All I could think about was what Jesus had said. The 3 days of darkness are coming. I must tell you, I couldn't sleep the first night after I came back. The paramedics said I was lucky. The hospital called it a miracle. My family cried when they arrived. The doctors were speechless. But none of them knew what had really happened. None of them had heard his voice. As I lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling, I could still feel his presence. It was faint now, like the warmth of sunlight fading at dusk, but it lingered in my chest, in my skin, in the spaces between my thoughts. I kept hearing it over and over. You must tell them. But how? How do you tell people that Jesus himself told you something most of them will call foolish? How do you warn the world that darkness, literal darkness, is coming? That it's not just a metaphor, not just a dream or a vision, but a spiritual judgment descending like a curtain over the earth? The second night, I was visited again, not physically, but in spirit. I woke up gasping at 3:03 a.m. Everything in the room was still, but I wasn't alone. I couldn't see anyone, but I felt the atmosphere shift, thick, holy, full of weight. And then I heard him again. You saw the beginning. Now I will show you the signs. I was no longer in my hospital room. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't leave my body this time. It was more like the veil was pulled back, and suddenly I was standing in a different realm. A vast field stretched before me. The sky was blue-black. The stars above didn't twinkle. They pulsed as if they were breathing. And in the center of the field stood a tall, radiant figure. I knew immediately. It was an angel. He raised his hand and pointed toward the horizon. "Watch," he said. And then I saw it. The first sign, the withdrawal of light. The sky dimmed, not like nightfall, but like the very source of light was being pulled away. The sun didn't set, it faded. Street lights began to flicker. Screens went blank. Everything electrical seemed to groan. It was as if creation itself was mourning the retreat of something sacred. The angel spoke. This is not power failure. This is a removal of mercy. He showed me families confused, trying to light candles, grabbing flashlights, but none of it could push back the unnatural dark. It wasn't just a loss of visibility. It was a loss of clarity. People didn't just stumble physically. They stumbled spiritually. They doubted what was real. They forgot how to pray. They turned on each other in fear. Then the field shifted, and I saw the second vision. The second sign, the rising of shadows. I saw men and women, dressed in suits and uniforms, standing behind microphones, news anchors, politicians, church leaders. But behind their eyes, something else moved, something dark. They smiled, but their words twisted truth. Their promises sounded good, but their motives were poisoned. The angel said, "This is deception. The spirit of confusion will rise. Even the elect will be tempted to follow false light." I saw churches full of people singing songs, but their hearts were hollow. Sermons about comfort and prosperity echoed, while outside their walls, the broken were ignored. A great falling away had begun, not loud, not obvious, but subtle and slow, like a slow leak in a lifeboat. People weren't renouncing Jesus outright. They were replacing him with versions of him that fit their lives better. Jesuses that never challenged them, never called them to holiness, never warned them of judgment. And then came the final vision in this realm. The third sign, the shaking of the earth. I saw the ground splitting, not in a single location, but everywhere. Cities trembling, oceans rising, fires consuming hillsides. But it wasn't just natural disasters. It was spiritual exposure. I saw secrets coming to light. Hidden sins, lies, systems of control and exploitation, all unveiled in one sweeping motion. Churches fell, nations cracked, movements dissolved. And then, in the center of it all, I saw a door, a wooden door standing alone in the chaos. Jesus stood in front of it, not shouting, not pleading, just standing, hand outstretched. "This is the ark," the angel whispered. "Only those who enter through him will endure what comes." And then everything went black. I was back in my hospital bed, drenched in sweat, sobbing. The nurse thought I was having a seizure. They ran tests. They found nothing. But I knew what I had seen. The 3 days of darkness are not just a period of black skies. They are a spiritual event, a testing, a division, a final calling, a last chance. Jesus had shown me the 3 signs that will precede it: the withdrawal of light, a literal and spiritual dimming, the rising of deception, false leaders, false messages, confusion, the shaking of the earth, both physically and in truth. "You must tell them," he had said, "because when the light is taken, it will be too late to prepare." And now, I'm telling you, I didn't go back to my old life after that. How could I? It wasn't just about surviving a cardiac arrest anymore. I had seen something most people won't believe until it's too late. And even though I was terrified of being ridiculed, I knew what Jesus had said. You must tell them. So I started writing everything down. I filled notebooks with what I saw, what I heard, and what I felt. But the more I tried to explain it in human words, the more I realized this isn't about explaining. It's about awakening. 3 days after being discharged, I was standing at my mother's kitchen window, watching the clouds roll in, The sky was heavy with a strange shade of gray, and I remembered the first sign, the withdrawal of light. My hands trembled on the windowsill. It was subtle, but I could feel it. A shift, a spiritual tension humming in the air. And that's when it happened again. I wasn't asleep. I wasn't unconscious. I was fully awake. But in an instant, the world around me faded, and I was standing in that strange in-between realm again. Everything felt weightless. The atmosphere was still, but not empty. It pulsed with presence. Jesus was there, not like before, when his voice thundered across the heavens. This time, he was close, standing just a few steps away from me. His eyes were full of sorrow, not anger, not frustration, just deep, overwhelming sorrow. The kind that makes your chest ache without knowing why. "My people are not ready," he said softly. I opened my mouth to respond, but no sound came out. It was as if my voice didn't matter here. Only my heart did, and it was beating wildly in fear and awe. They prepare for storms, for power outages, for lockdowns, but they do not prepare for me. He reached his hand toward me, not to touch me, but to show me something. Suddenly, a vision opened in front of us like a screen suspended in air. I saw churches, thousands of them, packed pews, smiling pastors, lights, screens, choirs, and sermons about peace, blessing, prosperity. But beneath the surface, I saw something hidden, empty altars. No prayer, no surrender, no repentance. They honor me with their lips, Jesus whispered, but their hearts are far from me. Then I saw homes, families sitting at dinner tables, scrolling through phones, couples sleeping in separate beds, cold and distant, parents yelling, children weeping behind closed doors. And yet, crosses still hung on the walls. Bibles sat on nightstands, unread. Faith was present in appearance, but not in practice. The pain in his eyes deepened. They do not forgive. They do not watch. They do not warn. They are asleep. And then his voice changed. It was still gentle, but sharper, like a warning bell. The 3 days of darkness are not coming to destroy you. They are coming to separate. I didn't understand. Separate what, Lord? I asked, finally able to speak. The faithful from the familiar, the awake from the asleep, the wheat from the tares. I saw the earth again, wrapped in a sudden blackness, unnatural, thick, suffocating. The sun vanished. No moon, no stars, just darkness. And I heard voices, screaming, crying, praying, begging, but not everyone was panicked. Some homes had light inside, warm, golden, steady light that defied the darkness outside. I saw families huddled in prayer, Bibles open, worship whispered from their lips. They were afraid, yes, but they were not alone. I will cover my own, Jesus said, but many will knock when it is too late to enter. I began to weep. He showed me one last image before I was pulled back. A door, the same wooden door from the previous vision. This time it was shutting. A hand reached out to grasp the handle from the outside, but it was too late. The door closed, and I heard weeping on the other side. Then I was back, kneeling in my mother's kitchen, my face wet with tears, my hands trembling uncontrollably. I didn't know how long I had been gone. Seconds? Minutes? Hours? But I knew this. We are almost out of time. And the 3 signs Jesus showed me are not just visions. They are instructions. Recognize when the light begins to fade, not just in the sky, but in your soul. Test every spirit, every voice, even from the pulpit. The enemy's greatest tool will be deception that looks holy. When the earth shakes, physically or spiritually, don't run to comfort, run to the cross. Because when the darkness falls, only those who already have his light inside will endure it. After that second encounter with Jesus, I didn't sleep for 3 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that door, that wooden door shutting. I kept hearing the sobbing from the other side. People who thought they had time, people who assumed they were safe because they believed once, because they went to church, because they knew the language, the lingo, the worship songs, but they had no oil in their lamps. It wasn't sin in the way we usually think of it. It wasn't drugs or cheating or murder. It was neglect, a spiritual sleep so deep they didn't even know they were asleep. Jesus wasn't angry in the vision. He was grieved, like a groom who prepared everything for the wedding, only to be left standing at the altar. Over the next few weeks, the message began to sink deeper into me. It was like a fire I couldn't quench, a burden that grew heavier with each passing day. Not fear, but urgency. Because the hardest part wasn't what I had seen. It was what I hadn't seen. I hadn't seen many of the people I love. That thought crushed me. I started reaching out to people, old friends, family, even strangers online, not to shove religion down their throats, but to warn them, to plead with them. Please, don't assume you're ready. Ask Jesus to show you your heart. Most just smiled politely. Some told me I was being too intense, too emotional, too dramatic. One said, "You've been through a lot, bro. Just heal." But I knew what I saw, and I couldn't stay silent. One night, I was praying in my room, and I felt something shift. I wasn't taking on my body this time, but I sensed Jesus standing right beside me, not visibly, but spiritually. My body trembled with his nearness. He said only one sentence. "Tell them they must cover their homes now, before the darkness begins." I asked what that meant, and he answered, not with more visions, but with reminders. I saw flashes of scripture. "When I see the blood, I will pass over you." Exodus 12, verse 13. "Go into your rooms, shut your doors behind you, hide for a little while." Isaiah 26, verse 20. 5 were wise and brought oil. 5 were foolish and brought none. Matthew 25, verses 1 to 13. He was connecting dots, showing me that what's coming isn't new. It's written. It's biblical. The 3 days of darkness are not some fringe theory. They're a reflection of how God moves in seasons of judgment and mercy. The question is, who will be ready and who will be left outside in confusion? He showed me how people are preparing in the wrong ways. Stocking food and candles, yes, but still gossiping, still bitter, still full of pride and offense. You can have a house full of supplies, Jesus said, "but if your heart is empty of me, the darkness will enter." That night, I sat at my table and wrote out what Jesus told me to tell others: how to cover your home before the darkness comes. Repent as a household. Confess everything: hidden sins, unspoken grudges, pride, unforgiveness. Start with yourself. Then gather those under your roof. Seal your home in prayer. Go room by room. Declare aloud, Jesus is Lord of this home. No evil may enter here. This house belongs to the light. Read the word daily, not as a ritual, but as food, especially Psalm 91, Isaiah 60, Exodus 10, and Matthew 24. Take communion regularly, as a household, not just in church. Do in your kitchen. Break bread, drink the cup, and remember him. Forgive quickly. Don't let offenses linger. The enemy will exploit bitterness in these last days. Stay watchful, not in fear, but in awareness. Be alert to what the Holy Spirit is saying, even in the small things. And then Jesus whispered something so quiet, I almost didn't catch it. Tell them I love them. That's why I warn them. I fell to my knees, because for all the fear, the urgency, the warnings, this was the root of it, his love. He warns because he longs for us to be with him, to trust him, to know him, not just know about him. It hit me like a wave. This isn't about darkness. It's about light. The darkness is temporary, but his light is eternal. And those who carry it will not be shaken. Even in the thickest blackness, they will shine. In the weeks that followed, I noticed something strange. Not in the sky, not in politics, but in people. Some believers I knew, lifelong Christians, started feeling heavy for no reason. They couldn't explain it. Anxiety, spiritual fatigue, a sense of urgency they couldn't name. I would hear in their voice, something feels off. They'd say, or I feel like we're on the edge of something. They didn't know what I had seen, but their spirits knew. Others, though, they were numb, comfortable, going to church, posting Bible verses, but completely asleep. It was like watching oil lamps being held up, and only some had flame. I started dreaming in layers, not just at night, but while praying. I'd see images in my spirit, quiet, symbolic, but deeply vivid. One dream in particular still haunts me. I was standing on a hill at night. Below me was a quiet village. Every house looked peaceful, untouched. The sky was clear. But I heard the Lord say, "It's already begun." And as I looked closer, I saw that most of the homes had no light inside, not even candles. They looked ready on the outside, tidy, neat, full of supplies. But spiritually, they were dark. Then I saw a single house at the edge of the village. It wasn't impressive. The roof sagged. The windows were crooked, but inside a soft light glowed. A family sat together, praying over open Bibles. And above that house, there was a pillar of flame, like the fire over the tabernacle in Exodus. And Jesus whispered again, I don't look at their provisions. I look at their posture. That dream stayed with me for days. I started praying more intentionally, not just for protection, but for posture, that I would stay humble, sensitive, surrendered, because it hit me. The darkness isn't just a day. It's a test of what's in our homes, yes, but also what's in our hearts. Will we hide in fear or worship and trust? Will we hoard candles and food while our souls are dry? Or will we carry oil that can't be seen, but shines in the unseen? One night, I was awake at 3:33 a.m. I didn't know why, but I felt summoned. So I went to the living room, sat in the dark, and whispered, "Jesus, I'm listening." He didn't speak in thunder. He didn't show me a new vision. But I felt this holy stillness settle over the room. And in that stillness, I knew something deep. Those who practice stillness now will survive the silence later. I didn't fully understand it then, but now I think he meant this. The 3 days of darkness won't just be physical. It'll be spiritually deafening for those who haven't practiced hearing his voice already. No preacher, no live stream, no worship team to guide you, just you and God and silence. Will that silence terrify you or purify you? Because during those 3 days, he will draw near to those who draw near to him. And so I began practicing, turning off noise, sitting in quiet, no phone, no music, just breathing, listening, waiting. Sometimes I heard nothing. Other times I felt peace wash over me like warm water. One day I asked, "Jesus, why did you choose me to share this?" And his answer stunned me. "Because you have no platform, just a mouth and a heart, and I can trust both." I wept because he wasn't looking for famous. He wasn't looking for polished. He was looking for willing. And now I understood something that flipped everything upside down. The 3 days of darkness are not just coming to judge the world. They're coming to test the church, to separate the lit from the lukewarm, the filled from the empty, the loud from the loyal. Some will mock, some will prepare, but only those with oil will endure. And so I kept warning people, one message at a time, in comments, in DMs on the street. Sometimes I was ignored. Sometimes people cried. One girl messaged me, "I had a dream of the sky turning black. I thought I was crazy until I saw your video." Another man confessed, "I haven't forgiven my father in 22 years. But I don't want bitterness to take me when the lights go out. This is what it's all about. It's not about terror. It's about turning. Turning back. Turning inside. Turning upward. Because Jesus isn't warning us to scare us. He's warning us to spare us. And the door is still open. For now." The final part of what I saw came like a flood. I was in prayer, eyes closed, face bowed low, and suddenly it was like my soul was pulled backward into that same realm where I had once met Jesus. Only this time, the light was behind me, and in front of me was a door. It was made of gold, but not shining. It pulsed faintly like it was alive. And carved across the center were the words, "The time of mercy." I moved toward it. I wanted to open it. But the closer I got, the heavier my steps became. I felt something like sadness, no, like grief, pressing on me like fog. Then I saw people behind me. Crowds. Walking. Laughing. Some with headphones in. Some scrolling through phones, others preaching, others partying. But all of them were walking toward that door, and not one of them noticed it was closing. Click. I heard it before I saw it. The first click, then another click, then a hum, like wind rising before a storm. The atmosphere shifted. Joy drained out of the air. And Jesus appeared again, not as a distant figure, but right beside me. His eyes didn't show panic. They held sorrow. Deep, holy sorrow. He said, "They think they have time." Then he reached for the door, placed his hand on it, and it started to shut. That's when I cried out, "No, Lord, there are still people who don't know, still people with good hearts, people who haven't heard." He looked at me gently but firmly. "I have given more warnings than they will ever know. I have sent dreams. I have stirred their spirits. I have delayed, and I have wept." Then the door began to seal from the bottom upward. Light leaked out through the top as it lowered, and I understood in my spirit. The 3 days of darkness will begin when this door shuts completely. And on the other side of that door, there is no more time to choose. Jesus said one more thing, soft but thunderous in its weight. Tell them to be inside before the door is. Inside what? Inside him. Not just inside a house with candles. Not just inside religion or tradition, but inside Christ, abiding in him, knowing him, walking with him in the quiet of the heart. Because when the darkness comes, it won't knock. It won't ask permission. It won't make a sound. It will fall. And those who are not sealed in prayer and faith in surrender, will feel the chill of the silence so deep it will expose every hollow corner of the soul. I woke from that vision breathless, crying, kneeling on the floor. I couldn't move. The weight of the Spirit was so thick that I just trembled. And then came the words I'll never forget. "This message is not yours to keep. It is your fire to throw." So here it is. The warning is simple. 3 days of darkness are coming. I do not know when, but I know this. They are real. They are spiritual. And they're God's final mercy before what comes next. Some will laugh. Some will argue theology. Some will scroll past and go back to Netflix. But a few of you, you feel it. You've had dreams. You've felt the tug. You've heard the Lord whisper, "Wake up." This message is for you. Prepare your heart. Forgive the ones who don't deserve it. Pray in your house like the power just went out. Read the Bible like it's the only thing keeping your soul alive, because it is. And above all, cling to Jesus. Not casually, not as a backup plan, but as your everything. Because when that darkness falls, only the light inside will matter. I leave you with this final word he gave me. The darkness will not hide them from me, but it will show them who they truly are. So choose now, before the silence, before the storm, before the door closes. If this testimony stirred something inside you, if you feel even a flicker of urgency, don't ignore it. Comment below with the words, "I will be ready," to mark your decision. Not just for me, but for you, your family, and your soul. Share this video with someone you love. It could be the light they need before the darkness falls. And above all, stay watchful. The bridegroom is closer than we think. Are you inside the door or still outside? This is your moment.